See my screen?
Oh, yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Today we'll discuss about there are some access modifiers in Java and also the exception handling. Okay. So when I say access modifiers, it is like, I mean, you can declare your variables or methods or classes and you can provide access to them. I mean, to the others basically like, so there are four access modifiers that we have in Java, which we call as private, uh, default, protected, and the public. Okay, these four are the access modifiers we have. So mostly we'll be using private and public. Okay, so the name, you can also define by the name. So private, right? It is private. I mean, if you declare any variable or any method or any class, okay, so nobody can use that. If you declare those as private, so you cannot use them in any other class. Okay. No, my Eclipse is not opening. I don't know why. So if you declare any variable, method, or class as private, so that will not be accessible from any other class. Okay. Let me just show you that. I'll just create a class called access modifiers. Let's create just write a class here. I'll make this method as private. Okay, and so the method name is list method, right? I'll just print something here. System dot out dot println private method, and I'll create another class where I'll say access modifier to is fine. Let me just I'll create, this. Okay, let me just create as public first. Okay, public. So the method name is list method, right? So I have a method in access modifier class. The name is list method, or maybe let me just put the name itself, access modifier method, something like that. So I'm just printing it is public method. Okay, so what I'll do, so suppose if this, I mean the code which you have written here might be useful in another class. Okay, so I have another class access modifier too. So how do you retrieve the how do you use the method which is in the class to another class? So using the, we'll create an object for that. I mean, we will create a reference basically. Okay, access modifier. Okay, access modifiers. Okay, equal to new access modifiers. Okay, and I'll say reference dot what is the method name? Access modifier method, right? Reference dot access modifier method. I'll just call that, and I'll run this one. So what I did, I just created two methods. So I'm reusing the method of, I mean, I created two classes. I'm just reusing the method of one class to another class. So public method, this method actually basically in access modifiers. Okay, I'm just reusing this method basically. Okay, as you see, if I run this, so it is going to this method and printing this one, right? So it means that I'm reusing the method of one class to another class. That will be accessible only when I say public. Suppose if I say private, let me just say, let me just create another method. I'll declare this as private, and I'll change the name also, private method. So using the same reference, I'll just try to access that private method. Let me just copy and paste here. So it is saying is not visible. The private method from the type access modifiers is not visible. Either you change that to change the visibility of this to package. I mean, it is saying either you change the this one. If it is private, so it means this method is private to this access modifiers class. N- None of the other classes can use this private method. Okay, because I declared this as a with the private keyword. So when I declare something with the private keyword, it means that nobody else can use this. Okay. In the same way, you can also declare variables like private int I equal to example one, and public int j equal to one. Okay. So when I declare like this, and if I try to use those, you can use this reference.j. But you cannot use I variable here because I variable declared as private, but j is declared as private, no, public. So you can use that the value of j into another variable in another class. So I mean, uh, when I declare something as private, it is private to only this class, and if you declare something as public, it can be accessed anywhere. Okay, and there is another thing called I mean, if I just declare something called k equal to 3 or something is, and so even if you don't say anything here, so it is a default, so that Java will take this as a default, but this default will be accessed only in another classes, but within the package, within the same folder. Okay, so let me just change the name of this default package. Why can't I rename it? Let me just create one package. Package means I'm just creating another folders. Com dot. So just this is one. I'll create another class. Let me just copy this class to another package. So access modifier 3. One second. So I think I okay, sorry. So uh, as you see, I mean, this is the default package. Somehow it is not taking from this, but yeah, I have two packages here. Uh, Let me just remove this one public. Let me just tell you why. Okay. System dot out dot println. Okay, access modifier 3 method. Okay. Okay, I forgot about this. So I have two different packages, com.test and com.test.copy. So when I say packages, it means it is the folders. I mean, so I have one class under this folder, com.test. I have another folder which is in com.test.copy. Okay, so this is my first class, right? So what I'll do, I'll just declare public int I equal to 1, private int j equal to 2, default int k equal to 3, protected int k l equal to 4 example. Okay, so I have declared four variables, which is like one is private, one is public, one is default, one is protected. Okay, these four variables I'll try to access from another package. Okay, so I have created a reference for another class, and with that reference I'll use name dot I is accessible. And int j equal to name dot j, which is not accessible. Int k equal to name dot k, int l equal to name dot l. Okay, so only, I mean, you can access only you cannot access because it is showing the error. And I say try to declare, I mean, um, try to get the value of j, it is saying you cannot use that, it is not visible. Even the k is not visible, the l is not visible. Okay, so I declared as public, so it can be accessible from anywhere. Private, you cannot access in another class. Default, you can access, but in another suppose in the same package, if I create access modifier 4, okay, let me just try to give this here access modifier 4 as well, then you can see the difference. In the same package, in different classes, these are two different classes, okay, but within the same package, within the same folder structure, then you can access public, default, and protected, but not private. So if you see, there is no error for I, K, L, only error for J, because the private you cannot use, but the default one and protected one you can use in another class, but within the same package. But if you if you have something in another package, some class in another package, you can have only public one. You cannot have any other things. What is the visibility of K here? Protected, right? Okay. 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 Ignore. Okay. Let me just write here the access modifiers. Private variable, method, or class cannot be accessed out of the same class. So it has to be in the same class. You can use this within the same class. Outside of the class, you cannot access it. But whereas in default and protected can be accessed within the class and from other classes within the same package. Public can be accessed from anywhere. I mean, from any other class within the same package or other package. Other packages. Okay. So these four keywords, I mean access modifiers, they'll say. So private, if you don't declare anything, it is default, and which is another thing called protected, and another one is called public. Okay. So when you declare something as private, you cannot access from any other class. You can access only within the class. But when you declare something as protected or the default, then you can access in the same class or any other class, but it has to be in the same folder. It has to be in the same package. But when you declare something as public, so this can be accessed. I mean, methods or variables or classes can be accessed from anywhere, from any other package or within your project. It can be accessed from anywhere. So these are the access modifiers we have in Java. If you see, the class is within the package, but in the different class. So only the private one cannot be accessed. I mean, private one is giving an error saying that it is not visible. But the default, I mean, public default protected can be accessed and assigning to these variables. And but if I go to another class in another package, you can see everything apart from public, all cannot be accessed. Okay, so I mean, if you want to reuse this, if you write some code, some method, and this has to be reused in your framework. Okay, so what you do, you have to declare that as a public. And if you're writing some method, some logic or some method which you don't need to access, I mean, it is specific to only this class, then you can declare that as a private, so that when people are even seeing your code, they'll say, okay, this private variable, so this is not using anywhere. And when you declare something as private, they say, okay, this might be the reusable function, might be using in other classes in the framework, in the project. So that's why it declares public. Okay, but mostly like will be protected, will not be using much. Public and private, most of the people will be using, but those are the I mean yeah, access modifiers we have in Java. Okay, and so any questions here? Let me write one other
I'm
class
good.
here. Okay, access modifier 5, and here I can say extends access. That's 3. Uh, okay, so we have something called extends. There is a keyword called extends. Okay, so what this extends will do, I mean, basically to get the values or methods of okay, let me just use this one, access modifier 5, and I'll use 3 here. Okay, just remove all the code from here. So I'll just declare one method. What is the method that I have in here? Okay, you see, um, suppose I have some method in access modifiers. I have this method, right? This method. So I want to reuse this in access modifier 5 in another class. So what we'll do basically, we'll create a reference for that access modifier 3 class, access modifiers 3 class reference equal to new, and then using that reference, you call this method name. Okay, so this is one way. There is another way. So instead of using creating an object and using that method, you can use this one, extends. Extends is the keyword. Extends access modifiers 3. So what I'm saying here, so I'm saying I'll extend all the methods or variables of access modifier 3 in this class. So in this case, you don't need to declare create an object or something, because you're extending you're extending all the features of access modifier 3 by using this extends keyword. So if you write after the class name, if you write extends, what is the class name you want to extend? So if you use this extends and access modifier 3, it means that all the features, all the variables and methods of this access modifier 3 will be accessible without creating an object for that class. So this we call as inheritance. You are inheriting the features of this class to this class. We call this as inheritance. So using this extends keyword, you can inherit all the features of one class to another class. So in those cases, you don't need to create any object for that class, and you don't need to use the reference to get that methods. You can directly use by extending the that class. Okay, and for example, if I put this class as public, right? So if I don't want to use these methods of this class, then private, I mean final, there is something called final. It is kind of a public, private basically. Final. If I say final, so that means it is static. I mean, you cannot use any of the methods or variables in another class. See, when I say extends, it is saying cannot subclass the final class. Okay, because this access modifier is final. You declare this as a final. So it means that it is private. When you declare something as final, you cannot use the features of this class to any other class. So that is the reason when I am trying to, when I try to extend, so it is saying an error, saying that you cannot uh, do that. So when you want to use the features of this class to any other class, you have to make that as a public. Okay. So yeah, these are the access modifiers we have in Java. So apart from that, let me just create another class and exception handling. Exception handling. We have something called try, catch, finally. So what is exception? Exception is nothing but an error, right? It is an error. Okay. So when you get an error in your code, okay. So in Java, there is some concept called, sorry, try, catch, throw, throws, finally. There are five try, catch, throw, throws, finally. These are the 5 keywords we'll use to handle the exceptions. Okay. So exception in the sense when you are writing a code, you get an exceptions. Sometimes like compile time exception. I mean, when you get uh, when you while writing code, when you get some error, it means that it is a compile time. Okay. So there is something called compile time and runtime. Compile time exceptions will see while saving itself, while compiling. Compiling means saving. When you are saving this class, because you write something, you have to use alt F and S or control S to save, so that this file will be saved. Okay. So while saving, if there are any errors in the code, it will show that we call as a compile time exception. I mean, you're saving your file, and then it is throwing an exception. It is compile time exception. And there are some exceptions where it will those we call as runtime exceptions. Those will come only when we are executing. Suppose I'll say int a equal to 0 and int b equal to 2 by a example. Okay, so 2 by a, 2 by 0. So if I try to run this one, so it is saying arithmetic exception divided by 0. You cannot divide it by, I mean, you cannot divide by 0 with some value. This is some infinite, right? So infinity. So I mean, you cannot divide a number with the 0. So it will throw you arithmetic exception. Okay. So this exception you see only while executing it, because you might be having so much of code. Okay, you don't know. So if you, I mean, while writing the code, it will not give you, because you don't know this value a is 0. While, I mean, the Java don't know. It is not syntax. The syntax is correct, but while you're running, then it will put 2 as 2 by 0. Then only the Java will know, okay, this is arithmetic exception. But while compiling, I mean, while you're writing the code and saving it, Java will not see the runtime exceptions. Okay, so the exceptions which comes while executing, so those will call as runtime exceptions. I mean, while running your code, it is coming. So those will call as a runtime exceptions. And compile time exception will come while compiling, and I mean while saving your application, your class. Okay, so there are two different type of exceptions. We have compile time and runtime. Compile time exceptions and runtime exceptions. So these we call as checked exceptions. The name they'll call as checked exceptions, unchecked exceptions. Unchecked exceptions will commit compile time, and checked exceptions will commit runtime. I mean, these exceptions will be checked while compiling. So runtime, it will not, it will be checked only at runtime. Okay. So if you just Google it, examples of compile time and runtime exceptions. So you'll get see, syntax errors and semantic errors. Those will come under compile time errors. And runtime errors are the one which they'll come at runtime. Okay. Uh, they should give the, they're not giving the examples. See, null pointer exception, array index out of bounds, invalid arguments. There are type of, I mean, sometimes they'll ask what are the runtime examples of runtime exception. Null pointer, array index out of bounds. Array index out of bounds, if you remember, we got this in our earlier class. So when we have some for loop for int I equal to 1, I I mean, we declared a list, I think. So when you see uh, collections, right? Collections. Here we have a list method. List has only five values. Okay. When you declare I equal to 1, I less than equal to, or maybe I